Hi, I'm Amy and I'm in my kitchen and today I'm making Swedish meatballs. And this is one of my favorite recipes. I'm making it for dinner tonight. I adapted it from a chef named Emma Bengtsson. She's a two-time Michelin-starred chef and she is the chef at Aquavit restaurant in New York and she's from Sweden. So this is how she grew up eating Swedish meatballs. It starts with some breadcrumbs and I'm going to put that in my bowl along with some milk. And the milk softens up the breadcrumbs. And another thing that works really well is an egg. So these are all the classic components to meatballs. I think the meatballs that we all know about are Italian meatballs. And these are almost exactly the same, but different flavoring and different spices. And I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'm putting in a little mustard. So with Italian meatballs, it's more of the tomato, not ketchup, but tomato sauce and garlic. And with these, it's the mustard, it's allspice, which is a very traditional Swedish flavor, and it's it's interesting because I think a lot of people think of allspice as, I'm just gonna even this out. A lot of people think of allspice as a spice for baking, but it's really good for savory foods as well. So this is my mixture so far, and then last but not least is a little salt, about 2 teaspoons. When you're making meatballs, it's really hard to tell how much salt to put in. And one thing you can do is, I know 2 teaspoons works really well with this, but you know, salt is different. I love to use diamond crystal salt, kosher salt. It's in a big red box, but it's really hard to know what your personal preference is. So what you can do is make one teeny tiny little meatball to test it out, and you just try it. And if you like it, then you're good. Hopefully you didn't put too much salt in because you can't really go back. But if you need more salt, that's the time. I'm gonna cook all of these meatballs together, so I'm taking a little bit of a risk, but I've made this recipe so many times, I know it works, and I think it's gonna work for you too. So I'm getting my hands dirty. I don't usually like to do this. I would much rather use a spoon, but when you're making meatballs, you really need to just put your hand in there. Of course, my hand is clean and I'm gonna wash it as soon as I'm done, but that is what you do. So here is my meatball mixture. Yep, I got all my ingredients in. Pretty simple, huh? So I'm gonna go over and wash my hand. And let me tell you a little bit about Emma Bengtsson, because she's an amazingly talented female chef. I worked with her when I worked at Pana, when I ran the culinary department at Pana. And she came in and cooked a whole series of Swedish recipes that she grew up on. And I don't know if any of you know anything about Aquavit in New York, but it is a very fancy Swedish restaurant made famous by Marcus Samuelsson. And so the things that are made there, the recipes that are made there at Aquavit are nothing like what Emma grew up on. So these Swedish meatballs are really special because this is like really traditional home cooking. So I think what you see I'm using is a cookie scoop, and this is a really easy way to shape meatballs and cookies. They are all the same size. I don't have to touch anything, and it works really well. So I have these on a baking sheet. I'm gonna finish this up later, but I have these evenly spaced on a baking sheet that I lined with a little parchment, and I'm gonna put these in the fridge for about 30 minutes to firm up a little bit. It also gives the flavors kind of a chance to set, and I'm putting all of that over there because we're gonna go over here and cook some Swedish meatballs that I already have prepared. So I made these Swedish meatballs this morning and I put them in the fridge, and I don't know if you can tell, but they just look like they've had a chance to settle. They look really good. and I am swirling my butter around. I have a cast iron skillet. I love cooking in a cast iron skillet. It's pretty much all I use, unless a recipe really kind of says you have to use a non-stick. But I tend to only use cast iron, and I buy my cast iron skillets in thrift shops and flea markets because those are really the best. I mean, this one, I bet this cast iron skillet is probably, I don't know, 80 years old, and it just gets better and better. Cast iron is naturally non-stick when it's seasoned really well, and I just absolutely love it. It is a joy to cook in this skillet. I look forward to it all the time. So I have my meatballs in here, and what I'm trying to do is just cook them on all sides. And I find with this size of meat, I have my temperature at medium high. When I turn it maybe like 3 or 4 times and get these meatballs brown on all sides, that takes about 8 to 10 minutes, and then the meatballs are cooked through, all the way through. So you can see how easy this recipe is. So here are the meatballs, and these are gonna be really, really good. I wanna show you like what makes them Swedish meatballs. It's the sauce. So, oh, this is a little hot. So we'll come back, so let's come back over here. I wanna show you what this looks like. I took a cup of beef broth and a cup of heavy cream, and I cooked it down so that I would say this is about, I cooked it so that it went from 2 cups to 1 cup. And this is a really great sauce, but what it needs is like that Swedish kick. And normally it's lingonberry jam, which is everywhere in Sweden. Lingonberries are like these little tiny berries that grow on bushes all over the place in Sweden. It's really hard to find here. In fact, the only place you can really find it is IKEA, which isn't open right now. So I had to improvise. Hold on a second, I'm just checking on my meatballs. I'm gonna turn them.
What could you serve this with, Mom?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we're gonna have this for dinner tonight, and I'm gonna serve it with rice. And the reason why I like rice, I don't really think that serving it with rice is very traditional, but I feel like rice is a little bit lighter than potatoes, and I don't know, I just think you can have more Swedish meatballs if you have rice in a salad, so that's what I'm gonna serve it with. So getting back to this sauce, normally you flavor it and give it like that Swedish vibe with some lingonberry jam, but it's really hard to find that. So I'm gonna use cranberry sauce, and I got this can of cranberry sauce at the grocery store. It's still, I really wanted to take it out and show the ridges, which I thought was really cool. And cranberries are very similar in flavor to lingonberries. So I have just a little bit of cranberry sauce, like a teaspoon, and I heated this up in the microwave just to soften it a little bit so it would mix better. And I'm gonna just whisk this again. And that's what gives this sauce a great, great flavor. All right, I'm gonna give it a little taste. I hope it mixed in. It doesn't look like it did, but it's not a whole lot. I mean, the heavy cream and the beef just give incredible flavor to this sauce, and it thickens it up too as it concentrates, but the tartness and the slightly sweetness of the cranberry are a really nice balance. Oh, that's amazing. It doesn't need salt because the beef stock is so concentrated. It's a naturally salty sauce. And my meatballs are looking really good.
How long would you leave the meatballs on for typically?
Like about, it takes like 10 minutes to cook them through. And the reason why, you know, I'm sure some people watching are thinking, can I bake these in the oven? Here's why you really want to do it on your stove, because they cook in butter. And that's another distinction between Swedish meatballs and Italian meatballs, which cook with olive oil. This is all butter, and butter adds a really nice flavor to these meatballs. So this is how you want to do it. Okay, so I made some meatballs in advance. And this is what they look like when they're fully cooked. And they smell amazing. I have so many different meatballs at so many different stages. And I just love that. So I'm going to put some of my sauce on the meatballs. And you don't need a lot of this sauce. In fact, what I like to do is kind of coat my meatballs in the sauce and then have extra on the side so people can, you know, have extra sauce if they want. But this is what they look like. And then the last thing is some parsley on top, just to give it some nice color. And I'm gonna just chop up some parsley. And then will you have a little taste for me if I know it's hard to hold the phone and get some food, but
Sure.
I'll make it nice for you. All right. So that is Swedish meatballs. Let's see if we can do this well. I'm gonna cut into one so we can see what the middle looks like.
Ooh.
Yeah, these are really, really good. Okay, see if you can handle that, and I'll have some too. And then I'll go back to finishing up cooking my meatballs. Thank you so much for joining me. This was so fun. DM me for any questions, and I will see you again soon. Bye.
All right.